Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back. This is part 3 of What If Female Deku Was Space Godzilla. Now, before we begin, I would like to say this. So, I do plan on doing a female Deku was Godzilla, but I wanted to ask you something. I also have an idea to do a Shin Godzilla one and a Godzilla Earth one. So, would you like me to do it where they're all put into one, or would you like me to do them separately due to Shin Godzilla, the Godzilla that we have and the Godzilla that we have right now, which is the MonsterVerse Godzilla, and Godzilla Earth as their own separate things due to them being in separate timelines? So, you guys get to decide on that one, whether I do them all put together or I do them separately. Now, let's begin. So, we will begin with where we last left off, with the Quirk test, with Aizawa passing the ball to Izumi. Izumi. Oh yeah, and one of you actually, the guy who suggested that her name would be Aurora, actually gave me the way it's pronounced, but my tongue refuses to let me pronounce it that way. So if I'm pronouncing it wrong, that is why. So do forgive me. As we then pick up with Aizawa passing the ball to Izumi. Aurora, Aurora, crestfallen. As he would say that, what was her high score in middle school? As she would say that it was around 300 meters. As Aizawa would say, okay, so without using your quirk. With her then tossing it, throwing the ball, and getting around 400 meters. As Aizawa would then say, oh, okay, now throw it with your quirk. As Izumi, Aurora would throw the ball, and I'd say about 50 points higher, as she would then go back in with the rest of the class. As during the rest of the tests, Aizawa does note that Aurora refuses to use her quirk, or isn't using her quirk. As Aizawa would think to himself that he will confront her at the end of school about this. Main reason I'm making this a plot point is because one of you watching this pointed it out with some very colorful language. And okay, so we'll continue now. As the end of the test comes with Aura being in, I'd say about 10th place, because again, she's not using her quirk. As Mineta would be in last place and he would be expelled. Because Aizawa would tell everyone to head back to class, except for Miss Crestfallen. She stays here, because I'll be having a little chat with her. With everybody else going back to class, with Aizawa walking up to Aura, asking her why was she not using her quirk. With Aura basically saying, "What do you mean? I wasn't using my quirk. I don't even have... What are you talking about? I was using my quirk. As I would say, don't lie to me. I can tell when somebody's using their quirk and when they're not. So tell me, why were you not using it? As Aura would just not speak. She'd keep her head down, as she would then say, "It's because I resent it. This quirk, my quirk made me a very large target for bullying. Even my own parents didn't even want me because of it. I don't even know who my own parents are. Do you know how hard it is to know that the people who are supposed to care about you abandoned you because of how your quirk is?" Besides our being surprised by this, as he'd say that he's sorry to hear about that, but not using your quirk is just proving that it will be sorry for the voice crack, will be proving that point. What you should do is that you should be using your quirk and prove to them that that they were wrong, that all of them were wrong. As during the speech about this, Aura began to tear up and began crying, but not like audibly sobbing, but you could see that she was crying. And she would begin to wipe the tears from her eyes, as she would say to Aizawa, "Thank you for that. I needed it." As she would finally let her tail down, and then let the crystalline her crystalline shoulders show, and everything else, including, because she's been basically hiding the crystalline crown as well, so she does show that as well. As she would say thank you to Aizawa, as Aizawa would say, "It's no problem, now get back to class." As she would say, "Yes sir," as she would immediately run to get changed and head back to class. Now, I'm going to say that Bakugo was All Might's successor, so Bakugo has one for all. As Aizawa would know that All Might was there, as he'd walk up to All Might, as he would say, "You know, that new kid, or a crestfallen, she kind of does look like your wife, doesn't she?" As All Might would look to him, and he would say, "What do you mean?" As I would say, "Didn't you and Inko say that you both had a daughter around 18 years ago, but you put her up for adoption because you didn't want her to be targeted?" As All Might would say, "But that couldn't be her. It just couldn't." As I would say, "How about this? After the hero versus villain training tomorrow, we will run a DNA test, and if it comes back positive, then she is your daughter. But if it comes back negative, then you will be right, and I will resign my position as a teacher at UA." As All Might would say, "Then that is fair enough." As we will then cut to the next day with the heroes vs. villain training, as they would hear something coming down the hallway, as they would hear someone yell. All Might yell as he's coming through the door. He would yell, "I am here," coming through the door like a normal person. As everybody would be cheering, except for Aura, because you remember from the first part, she did fight All Might initially, and she did get pretty injured from it. As All Might would then give a speech and say a thing about their hero costumes, as everybody's hero costumes would come out as they'd get changed into them, with everybody's hero costume being the same as in canon, except for Aura's, where she's walking out in something like this. As they would, as some people would point out that it doesn't really look that practical, as she would say, look closer, my dear friend. As they would notice that it is glistening a little bit, sort of like the crystals on her shoulders. And then they would then realize that her hero costume has bits of her crystals infused into it, so its durability is a lot higher. It's about as durable as Space Godzilla's actual crystals, which, for those of you who don't know, it took Mogira, which was a thing nearly designed to kill Godzilla, in order to break them. As she would then move into place with everyone else, as All Might would then bring out the lots, with Bakugo and Ida being on the villain team, and Aura and Uraraka being on the hero team, with Bakugo and Ida going into the building. Hold on. Alright, sorry about that. As Aura would say that they'll need to sneak in through the building, and that she has the perfect way to distract them while they're sneaking in. She's saying that Uraraka should sneak in while she's creating a distraction. As Aura would explain her plan, Ochako would float up to the roof and go down the way, while Aura starts at the bottom floor and then goes up, creating large crystal shards that will cause enough noise to cause the both of them to be distracted and then run to investigate it. As they would assume that you are behind me around the corner, while in actuality you're on top of the roof going down. As Uraraka would say, "That is a brilliant plan. How did you come up with it?" With Aura saying, "I have two brains, one up," as she'd point, "one up here," as she would point to her head, as she would then say, "and one right here," as she would point to where her hips are. Give me a minute. Now, here's the thing. I'm not actually sure if Space Godzilla actually has two brains, but since he's sort of like based off of Godzilla's biology, I'd assume that he does. As Uraraka would be surprised and initially shocked to find out that she has two brains. As Aura would say, "Save your questions for after the match, okay?" As Uraraka would say, "Alright." As Aura would then say, "Now, let the plan commence." As she'd begin walking into the building, as Uraraka would begin to float upward onto the roof. With every step Aura taking, large crystals begin to pierce through the building. Well, they're quite large to the point where they'd pierce through a floor, but not the actual entire building. Aura is not trying to shish kebab Bakugo and Ida. She's trying to cause distraction. As there would be Bakugo and Ida would hear large amounts of rumbling and banging, as Bakugo would yell that he's going to go investigate it. It's probably that Aura girl. As Bakugo would immediately charge down there, using One for All. As Aura would then land down on the ground, as Bakugo would be on the same floor as Aura, as he bounced around the corner, as everything in Bakugo's perspective begins to slow down. As soon as he rounds the corner, he turns his head as he sees Aura there, with her crystals fully charged, as Bakugo would then think, wait, that looks familiar. Wait, is that? And before he could finish his sentence in his head, the Aura lets off a breath weapon, which basically sends Bakugo flying backwards into a wall, as she would then use her telekinesis to keep Bakugo pinned there. As Aura would say, "It's been a while, Katsuki. How have you been?" And that is where I'm going to end this part off. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. And one more thing before we go. Should I give Deck Izumi a thermal nuclear mode, sort of like the one Godzilla went into? Should I give her one of those, or should I not? You guys get to decide, and I will see you all next time.